When the message from my mother popped up, "We won't be coming to Finn's birthday. Money's tight." I stared at it for a few seconds before typing back, "It's okay." My voice didn't even crack, but something inside me did. Later that evening, Finn looked up at me with those big, hopeful eyes and whispered, "They forgot about me again, didn't they, Mom?" I didn't answer. I just held him, not yet knowing the truth was far uglier than an empty excuse about money. I grew up learning a rule no one ever said out loud: Tanya was the sun, and the rest of us just orbited around her. My parents acted like her brightness was something fragile they had to protect, while I was the child who would be fine no matter what. That sentence followed me through my whole childhood. It sounded like a compliment, but it was really permission for them to neglect me. Tanya had a bedroom painted lavender with twinkle lights and matching furniture. I slept on the pull-out sofa for 3 years because it builds character. She got ballet, piano, and summer art camp. I got a basketball league only because I begged, and even then, I had to pay the registration fee with the money I earned from walking dogs in the neighborhood. Every birthday of mine somehow overlapped with something more important for Tanya. My 12th birthday combined with her trip to a dance showcase. My 15th was replaced by her getting braces. When I turned 18, they bought her a new dress and told me, "We'll celebrate you later." Later never happened. Still, I loved my parents. I loved my sister. Or maybe I just needed to believe that love was enough. When I moved out at 19, I expected the distance to make things better. Instead, it made me more useful. When Greg had his knee surgery, I used every savings I had to cover what insurance didn't. When their phone bill became too much for them, I quietly set up autopay and covered it for 6 straight years. And whenever Tanya had a crisis, which was often, my mother called with the same exhausted plea, "Sweetheart, your sister's struggling. Could you help out, just this once?" Just this once became hundreds of dollars at a time. Gas money. Clinic copays. Emergency rent. I always said yes. I don't even know why. Habit, maybe. Or hope that someday they'd see me the same way they saw Tanya. Then Finn was born. The moment I held him, everything changed. Suddenly, I wasn't just living for myself, I was living for him. I wanted him to feel wanted. Chosen. Loved without conditions. Even after things with his father didn't work out, I tried to keep peace with my parents for Finn's sake. I wanted him to have grandparents who showed up. But over the last 2 years, something in them hardened. The calls became less frequent, the warmth faded, replaced by short, clipped conversations that always ended with, "Before I let you go, can you help us with something?" They rarely said Finn's name. Never asked how school was going. Sometimes I wondered if they even remembered how old he was. I told myself they were busy. Old. Tired. Anything except the truth. Then came Finn's birthday. When Lydia texted that they couldn't afford to come, it stung, but I convinced myself it was just bad timing. People struggle. Money gets tight. I swallowed the hurt because that's what I'd trained myself to do. I thought the disappointment would fade. It didn't. It exploded on Christmas morning. Finn and I were setting up his new train set when my phone buzzed with a notification. I opened it casually, expecting a holiday greeting. Instead, I froze. There was Tanya, standing in my parents' living room, surrounded by decorations I had never once seen them put up for Finn. The tree was covered in gold ornaments, presents piled all the way across the floor. Her kids posed with Lydia and Greg, all of them grinning like they were starring in a holiday commercial. The caption hit harder than any slap. "So grateful to spend the holidays with the grandchildren we love most." I stared at that sentence until the words blurred. Finn leaned over my shoulder. He saw the picture, saw his grandparents holding Tanya's kids. After a long, quiet moment, he whispered, I guess I'm not their favorite grandkid, huh? My throat closed. I wanted to shield him from that reality, but it was too late. He'd seen it. He felt it. My son, my little boy with the biggest heart, realized in one breath what I had spent 30 years trying not to admit. We were never their priority. Not even close. That was the moment something inside me cracked open, not with rage, but with clarity. The pattern wasn't new. It had always been there. I had just stopped letting myself look at it. But now? Now it was impossible to ignore. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake replaying Finn's question in my mind, the way his voice trembled like he was afraid of the answer. Somewhere around 2 a.m., something inside me finally clicked into place, a quiet, unwavering decision. By 3 a.m., I had my laptop open. By 4 a.m., every automatic payment tied to my parents was cancelled. Phone bills. Insurance. Emergency transfers. The small subscription boxes Lydia insisted she needed for her health. All of it. Done. One click at a time. The house was silent. The air felt different, not lighter, but honest. At 5:03 a.m., the pounding on my front door shattered the quiet. Jade. Open this door right now. Greg's voice. Loud. Furious. The same tone he used when I was a kid and dared to question him. I unlocked the deadbolt but didn't open the door wide. He shoved it the rest of the way, stomping inside like he owned the place. What the hell did you just do? He yelled. My services are all shut off. Your mother's line isn't working. My pharmacy said the account is declined. Explain yourself. Behind him, Lydia fluttered in like a shadow, hands waving dramatically. Honestly, Jade, you are being petty. All this because we missed one birthday? You're blowing everything out of proportion. Before I could answer, Tanya and her husband, Mark, appeared on the landing, still half asleep but apparently eager for the show. Tanya folded her arms. God, Jade. Really? You're raising Finn to hate us, aren't you? That's what this is about. Mark added, kids don't naturally grow distant. It's what you're putting in his head. My kitchen suddenly felt like a courtroom, with 4 people accusing me in stereo. I took a breath. You all need to leave. Now. Greg laughed, mocking, disbelieving. We're not going anywhere until you fix what you broke. I didn't break anything, I said. I just stopped paying for things that were never my responsibility. Responsibility? Greg snapped. We raised you. Fed you. Put a roof over your head. And this is how you repay us? Lydia chimed in, your sister never treats us like this. She understands what family means. I almost barked out a laugh. Family? If this was family, then why did Finn flinch every holiday? As if summoned, Finn stepped out from the hallway, rubbing his sleepy eyes. When he saw the crowd, he froze, small, scared, in his little dinosaur pajamas. Lydia put on her sugary voice. Oh, sweetheart, we were just. Finn cut her off. And the whole world seemed to stop. You forgot me, he whispered. His voice cracked on the last syllable. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. Greg's face went red. Lydia's mouth fell open. Tanya took a step back. It was like Finn had spoken a truth none of them expected to hear from a child, because children don't lie about hurt. They don't exaggerate emotional wounds. They just feel them. For once, they had no script. I knelt next to Finn, placing a hand on his back. It's okay, honey. Go to your room. I'll be there soon. He nodded and slipped away, the door closing softly behind him. Silence hung heavy. I stood and walked to the counter, grabbing the folder I'd prepared hours earlier. I opened it and spread the papers across the table. Let me remind you, I said, calm but cold, of everything I've actually done for this family. I pointed to each page. Itemized lists. Dates. Transaction IDs. Thousands of dollars over years. Every time they needed help, I was there. Every crisis, I fixed. Every bill, I carried. Lydia stared at the documents like they were written in another language. Greg scoffed, money doesn't erase gratitude. You can't put a price on raising a child. I met his glare. No, you can't. But I paid you back anyway. Every dollar you spent raising me? I returned tenfold. Mark let out a low whistle. Tanya elbowed him. Greg's voice rose again, angrier this time. You think this justifies disrespect? You think this accounting project, proves anything? You are ungrateful. We gave you life. And I gave you everything after that, I said. More than you ever asked my sister for. More than you've ever given Finn. Greg slammed his hand on the table. Lydia gasped. You think you're better than us, he hissed. But you're nothing without this family. I stared at him, at all of them, and for the first time in my life, I felt absolutely nothing. Not fear. Not shame. Not guilt. Just clarity. The truth about the loans. The forged documents. The real betrayal. I hadn't even spoken about those yet. And when I did, the whole foundation they stood on would collapse. I didn't tell anyone what happened that morning, not at first. I walked around with my heart feeling like wet concrete, heavy and slow, unsure which part hurt more, the shouting, the accusations, or the look on Finn's face. By the time I dropped him off at school and drove to work, I felt like I was moving through fog. Renee noticed immediately. She didn't ask gently. She never did. What happened? You look like someone scraped the soul out of you. I told her everything, the birthday, the Christmas photos, the confrontation, Finn's whisper that broke the hallway in half. I expected her to comfort me, to say something soothing. She didn't. Instead, she said the one sentence I had spent 30 years avoiding. They didn't forget Finn, Jade. They chose someone else's kid over yours because they like them more. The words hit me so hard I actually felt myself sway in my chair. Renee leaned in. And you keep trying to fix it with money. So of course they think love is something you're supposed to pay for. It felt like she had peeled my entire life open with a single knife. Then she added, do me a favor. Check your credit report. Right now. I didn't understand, but I pulled it up on my phone. It loaded slowly, painfully, each second tightening something in my chest. Then I saw it. A loan. $10,000. Opened in my name. My throat dried instantly. I didn't take this out, I whispered. Renee's voice softened. I know. We dug deeper. The digital signature on the form was a shaky imitation of mine. The contact number listed wasn't mine, it was my parents' home line. The person who submitted the application was named clearly. Lydia Monroe. And the beneficiary account, the place the money had been deposited, was Greg's. I felt my stomach twist, like I might be sick. All the little emergencies, the quiet requests, the emotional guilt-tripping, they weren't random. They weren't occasional lapses of judgment. They were a pattern. A system. A method. I called Marty, a local attorney Renee trusted. By afternoon, I was sitting in his office handing over screenshots, loan documents, and my report. He was calm, too calm. Let me dig. This doesn't look isolated. It took him 2 days. 2 days before he called and asked me to come in. When he placed the stack of papers in front of me, I felt the world tilt. 3 loans. Not 1. 3. All in my name. All using my social security number. All filed by either Lydia or Greg. All deposited into their accounts. Marty narrowed his eyes. This is identity theft, Jade. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a crime. I stared at the papers, my name printed under debt I never agreed to, signatures I never wrote, addresses I didn't list. And suddenly, the grief of being forgotten wasn't the sharpest pain anymore. It was the betrayal of being used. Used as a wallet. Used as a safety net. Used as a get-out-of-jail-free card for the people who were supposed to protect me. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't crumble. I just felt something inside me harden into a decision. This ends, I said quietly. It ends for me. And for Finn. Because I could survive my parents treating me like an afterthought. But I would not let Finn grow up believing love meant sacrificing yourself for people who would happily leave you behind. That was the moment everything became clear. Protecting him meant drawing the line deep enough that no one, Lydia, Greg, Tanya, or anyone else, could ever cross it again. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt strong enough to draw it. I booked the community center's small meeting room for Sunday afternoon, neutral ground, public enough to discourage theatrics, private enough for what needed to happen. I arrived early with Marty, who set up his laptop and the projector while I organized the stack of documents that had become the map of my awakening. My heart was steady. Not calm, exactly, more like braced. Prepared. At 2:07 p.m., the door swung open. Greg barged in first, chest puffed like he was preparing for battle. Lydia shuffled behind him, eyes red but not from guilt, she had been practicing a performance. Tanya came last, arms crossed, already annoyed to be there. What is this about? Greg demanded. We have things to do today. Sit, I said. My voice surprised even me, quiet, level, unshakable. They sat. Eventually. I started the slideshow. The first image that appeared on the wall was the Christmas photo Tanya had posted, her kids sitting on my parents' laps, presents piled high, lights twinkling, all smiles. You could feel the oxygen drain out of the room. You told me you had no money for Finn's birthday, I said. You told me Christmas was cancelled because you were struggling. Lydia let out a shaky breath. Jade, sweetie, that was a lie, I finished. A deliberate one. I clicked to the next slide, years of payments I had made for them, color-coded by category, medical, utilities, emergencies. Next slide, the autopay receipts. Next slide, the credit card balance I had covered when Lydia said she was scammed. Next slide, the Venmo log of all the quick loans to Tanya that supposedly had nothing to do with Tanya. Then came the final slide. The one that made Lydia's knees buckle. The loan documents. The forged signatures. The bank routing numbers. The approval notices. All in my name. All submitted from my parents' home internet. Lydia slapped a hand over her mouth and began to cry, not the grieving kind. The caught kind. Jade, baby, I only borrowed it. I meant to pay it back. You took out $10,000 using my identity, I said. And then 2 more loans. You didn't borrow. You stole. Greg slammed his palm on the table so hard Tanya jumped. Families help each other. You're acting like a stranger. You're acting like some selfish outsider. I turned to him. No. I'm acting like someone whose identity was stolen. By her parents. He shot up from his chair, pointing an accusatory finger at me. You owe us. After everything we've done for you. What you've done for me. My voice didn't rise, but it sliced. I slept on a sofa while Tanya had her own room. I paid my own school fees. I bought my own car. And when I became an adult, you two treated me like a backup savings account. Tanya muttered, "This isn't fair." I cut her a look. You're right. It's not fair. To Finn. A 7-year-old who had to find out the hard way he wasn't worth showing up for. Lydia sobbed harder. Greg's face flushed a dangerous red. You always think you're better than us. You and that boy think you're victims. The table rattled as he slammed it again, hard enough that Marty reached toward his phone. Greg leaned forward, voice shaking with rage. You should be grateful we didn't kick you out when you were a mouthy, ungrateful kid. I stood slowly. Every movement measured, deliberate. And you should be grateful, I said, that all I've done is file a report. Because what you two did is a crime. Identity theft. Fraud. Financial abuse. Lydia gasped. You reported us? Yes. Greg lunged forward like he was about to throw the chair. Marty stepped between us. I didn't flinch. I didn't cower. I simply picked up my folder, tucked it calmly under my arm, and said, I will protect my son. From anyone. Including the people who share my blood. Lydia reached out, pleading. Jade, honey, let's talk. No. Greg barked, don't walk away from this conversation. But I already was. I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped out. I didn't apologize. I didn't explain. I didn't look back. And for the first time in my life, the air outside felt like freedom. In the weeks that followed the confrontation, the silence from Greg and Lydia felt unreal at first, like the calm after a storm that hadn't quite finished breaking. But then the official letters began arriving at their address. Investigators contacting them about the fraudulent loans. Requests for interviews. Notices of flagged accounts. Suddenly, the people who had spent years screaming the word family at me were too busy fighting legal consequences to send a single message my way. They didn't call. They didn't text. They didn't show up at my door. And for the first time, their absence felt like protection, not loss. Tanya reached out once. She sent a long, emotional message about how she never meant to hurt me and didn't know the full story. Maybe that was true, maybe it wasn't. I didn't hate her, but I didn't trust her either. I told her I needed space, real space, not the temporary kind we always pretended solved everything. She didn't argue. With the noise gone, my life grew quieter in the best possible way. I didn't realize how much of my brain had been occupied with managing them, anticipating their needs, bracing for their demands, calculating how to keep the peace. The second that weight lifted, my days became lighter. My work performance improved almost overnight. My boss even commented on how focused I seemed. It wasn't focus, it was freedom. I poured that energy back into Finn. We started taking Saturday trips, hiking trails, afternoon picnics, even a camping weekend where he stayed up late pointing out stars and telling me he felt brave like a superhero. I signed him up for music lessons, and every time he held his little guitar, he looked like the happiest kid alive. Our home changed, too. It stopped feeling like a battlefield or a waiting room for conflict. It became warm, safe, filled with laughter I didn't have to manufacture. In the evenings, Finn would curl up beside me, and I'd realize how different love feels when it's mutual, simple, and real. Looking back, I understand now that cutting ties wasn't an act of cruelty, it was an act of protection. Not just for me, but for my son. I couldn't let him grow up thinking that love was something you earned by sacrificing yourself to people who never sacrificed anything in return. I didn't lose a family. I ended a cycle. And in the empty space they left behind, something new grew, something healthier, quieter, and infinitely more loving than anything I had known before. Finn and I didn't rebuild our family. We created a new one. Just the two of us, finally safe. In the end, I learned that revenge doesn't always come from striking back. Sometimes it comes from finally stepping out of the cycle other people trapped you in, choosing peace over obligation, choosing your own future over their expectations. Family isn't defined by blood or last names, it's defined by respect, by presence, by love that doesn't come with a price tag. If you've ever felt like the last priority, or worse, like an ATM disguised as a family member, please hear me, you're not alone, and you're not wrong for wanting better. My story isn't about destroying anyone. It's about walking away so my son and I could breathe again. And if you see pieces of yourself in what I've gone through, I hope you know you deserve that same freedom. If this story resonates with you, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe for more family revenge stories that remind you your worth isn't something anyone gets to decide but you.